Everybody ready?
This is insane.
After he's stalked, we must get rid of him immediately.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
Good morning.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale.
Your papers, please.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, folks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's another day. It's a Wednesday. Hump day, dump day. In case I have to take a break, it'll be a hump day, dump day. I wanted to show you something before we start the show. I didn't keep the spam up, but we're just going to do this quick display capture thing. And I realize apparently YouTube has decided to put me up live, and you can see the title of the show is War, Climate, Bugs. What'll they throw at us next? And then there's a picture of the Earth as it appears most throughout its life. I mean, once it started cooling. We're in an interglacial period now, the real climate change. But anyway, I want to show you this. Like, there's Lauren Chen. She's kind of cool. I like her. She's the one on the right. And, this is this new thing. It's not new, but, this is the type of stuff that comes through. But anyway, OnlyFans models can't get boyfriends. I just thought this was very telling. Here, some Russian band has decided to become a fan of me. I became a fan of them. Why not? And then I don't know if you know this guy, this comic, but, you could pause that and take a look at that. Then you got this Styx Hammer guy who's been around forever. The New York Times thinks nuclear war would be a joke, he says. And then something about shut off gas, TikTok bans uploads, Biden blames Russia for the economy. Well, there's nothing new there. U.S. may ban Russian oil imports. I thought that already happened. That says 9 hours ago. I think it much did happen. Don't know too much about that. This is kind of a laugh. You're welcome to that promo code because enjoy up to $25 off your favorite flavors. It's like I look at stuff like that and I go, $25. I don't want to pay more than $25 for a meal. So if it's $25 off, I don't want it. And this Dan Bongino guy, I think he's one of the owners of Rumble actually, and he says Biden knew and he did it anyway. Anyway, I just thought I would do that. I'm going to quit out of that. I'm going to expose some of my email. I guess. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I don't care anymore.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Yeah, that's me. You got the right channel. Hello. Game over. But I guess what prompted me to put up this thing, the real climate change, was that I caught something, like I say, I'm a YouTuber. You can't get more YouTuber than this, doing this every day, day in, day out for a couple hours a day. And then watching YouTube for a couple hours a day. I mean, I pretty much live half the day a YouTuber, and depending on the season, the other half is a gardener, farmer, / farmer. And the other half is just like, trying to keep the rain from coming down into my bedroom and second floor. Of course, we're supposed to have a thunderstorm within the hour, and it's a pretty strong possibility. It's now, well, wait a second. It just changed over that it might be snow at 4 a.m. It says now snow, and I was just out taking my morning deep breath of cool air. It's 37 degrees outside, and outside the studio here, in the mid-Atlantic states on this Wednesday morning, 3:50 a.m. in the calendar year, March 9th, 2022. And it's going to stay 37 like all day. That's what the weather thing is saying. The weather bug, right? It's like 37 now. It's been 37, and it says that the high today is 37, and the low is going to be 27. And tomorrow's going to be the temperature of Heineken to serve Heineken out, and overnight 28. Friday will be like in the 40s and 28, and then Saturday it's going to be freezing for the high, 100% chance of snow, and then down to 12 degrees. And I saw a robin redbreast out in the backyard that looked seriously pregnant and was like trying to like desperately get feed. I hope it's got a nest that can it can handle. It doesn't have those eggs at 12 degrees because they'll freeze. I knew where the damn thing was, but what could I do? Anyway, I feed birds. I take care of birds, animals. My cat goes to the vet today just as a precautionary measure to get checked out. He's had some problems. Of course, he didn't really eat his food this morning, his wet food, which he usually licks, at least does a good licking of it. So I'm glad he is going, I guess, in retrospect. I was going to tell someone else is taking him. I was going to have the appointment canceled because he had his BM yesterday, which was the main concern. Anyway, that should bring you up to date, with me.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And, so...
the only station that matters.
You're listening to that, and... oh, no! Yeah, I don't know. I'm just pushing buttons. Yeah, that's me. Kind of look washed out. My teeth don't look as white as this, but nothing looks white. It's, in this light. That's okay, right? In today's world. The less white, the better, right? Well, you better get ready for white because that Earth, that frozen Earth, that picture of the Earth there is more likely what's going to be occurring in the coming years than what the media is saying. And that's what I was trying to say. And what I set me off and I guess took me down this path was that it's like I could never seem to... Thought I heard something. I don't know if that was somebody outside or the cat. Somebody was, this idea that they were saying that, I don't know if you saw that that cartoon graphic, and you could rewind and go look back at it that I was showing you. But that the U.S. is supposedly, this show is not going to be about politics. It's going to be a free flow of consciousness. We'll probably have we'll go in a decent direction today. It'll be interesting and all that jazz. But just to get this stuff, them babbling. That the story is from the energy secretary, and I think I may have touched on this yesterday, but I don't know if I got into this in this specifically. But this was reinforced yesterday when I was watching YouTube, and I just saw something, and I happened to get on a clip of it. I don't know why I had today. It's Henry Kissinger's breakfast or something like that.
Really funny. Really funny.
There's no reason for that. Uncalled for. Anyway. So, and if you don't like it,
go ahead and shoot. You'll be doing me a favor.
But I think it was the energy secretary or somebody in the energy department higher up, the assistant or whatever, these bureaucracies. Or it might have been somebody in the White House or Biden himself, and basically said, or some representative, if not many, it might have been the press secretary as well. I think she had said it as she did say that too. Also, in addition to that, one of the reasons why we're going to go take Venezuelan oil, which is allied with Russia, by the way, and the guy is a dictator, and it will go back to the Middle Eastern world of, being under their thumb for oil, right? And negotiating some ridiculous deal with Iran, who really is just, probably, I mean, one of the worst, potential adversaries out there. I mean, next to China that could, nuke us, I guess, if they wanted to. And it looks like there's something going to happen with Taiwan anyway. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. There's such a, China is caught in between a rock and a hard place because they've got, 1.5 billion some people, and they, trade is a necessary thing. And I guess, mutual assured destruction isn't exactly something in their, it wasn't planned by the CCP at their last meeting in their 5 or 50-year plan. They had like a 50-year plan, too. That's how far they plan ahead. But anyway, so apparently the Biden administration, the price of oils now has broken what used to be the glass ceiling. In other words, whenever oil approached $4 or if it reached $4, it usually meant the U.S. economy was going to crash. And more so now than ever because there are so many SUVs out there. And like I said, I don't have to get into the idea that electric cars do run on natural gas and coal and things like that. See, they're not an option. But somehow Biden, I mean, when you have someone who is mentally, disabled, I mean, he's literally, is losing his mind. And people around him who are just seem to be Peter Pan type of people or some kind of ideologues who were brought up under who were indoctrinated, basically. And like I say, they're 2 times removed from reality as far as even their parents and grandparents. So they're not aware what actually happened, the real history of the United States dating back just even to the 60s. So they don't understand. Like, there are actually people protesting in the streets in their 20s that don't know that we already had a civil rights movement and it was successful. You see, they don't know there was a feminist movement and it was successful. They don't know that there was an anti-war Vietnam movement and the Vietnam War movement ended. And they don't know that the real peace and love time wasn't what you see in the movies like in the 60s, Summer of Love and stuff like that. Those were tumultuous times, and those were real hard times. That is when we did have, civil unrest and all kinds of crazy stuff and war and prejudice and all craziness going on. The real summer of love was like 1975. The Vietnam War was over in the late 70s, and it was peace and love. Just go back and listen to some of that, classic R&B music and the music of the hits. Listen to the Casey Kasem top 40s from the late 70s. Okay? Billboard top hits. That's pop culture. Politics wasn't pop culture back then. Nobody even really gave a crap. They only gave a crap, about, when it was a wartime or there was a reason, So anyway, these people are out of touch. So they don't know, they don't understand socioeconomic geopolitics. They don't understand domestic politics. They don't understand our own history even 60 years ago, 50, 60 years ago. And they don't understand science. Because they've been taught by professors who were taught by professors from textbooks that were already moving in the wrong direction. But the funny thing is, in the late 70s, okay, the cover of Time magazine said, "Are we heading for another ice age?" What do we got here? On this one. Why is that under extra? Okay, let me just do something here. What's this one? That's that. I didn't even want to think about that. Let me do something for you really quick to make this point. If I could find this thing. Let's see. See if I would have put Archie Bunga. I see Archie Bell and the Drells came up. Time cover. No. Okay, let's look at show content. I got to find this thing for you because previous slides. This is something I hate to do this, but you know. I once dealt with one of these shows, and so I do have some of this stuff archived. I just have to find it. And it's going to take a second, and I know it looks weird me just staring at the screen, but it's kind of important because it makes a point of the hypocrisy, which I accidentally had pulled up before, of what is going on. So, I know it's here, and I will find it, and it won't waste much more of your time. So just bear with me. Patience. Patience, me precious. Show title. It wouldn't have been a show title. So it's probably just right in here somewhere. Big freeze. Yeah, I know I had it. That didn't take long. Okay, check this out. This is the cover of Time magazine, all right? Let me enlarge it, all right? And it says December, it might be the 3rd, I can't tell, but it's 1973. Is that 3 or 8? It's hard to say, but I think it's a 3. All right. You could check. Anyway, it was in the 1970s. So I think it was All in the Family was a big show. That's Archie Bunker. So that was All in the Family. So I think that show it might be in 78, but it could be 73. I don't know. We also had like the Johnstown flood around that time. Hurricane Agnes, one of the worst ones. There was no power in like the parts of the Northeast for like a week or two. Right? Like all these things people talk about now, like this 50-year cycle is back. So this is your beloved Time magazine, about as left-leaning as you can get, and it's talking about big freeze, and you read the article, and it's like, are we heading for another ice age? Right? This is where they were then. Now, do you understand how the hypocrisy? And like, see, the people don't understand that 50 years ago, right? These people changed literally like the weather, pun intended. Okay? That's not photoshopped or anything. You could go find that. All right? Like I say, it's blurry here. I mean, I don't even know how. Let's look. It is 73, I'm pretty sure. So it looks like December. It's hard to say what that second digit is, but but it looks to me like it's got to be a 73 or an 8. Anyway, it's kind of weird doing it like that. So back then we had real science. Do you see? Real science. In fact, it wasn't like today where you would actually, they would give you the weather in the morning and that weather would hold true at least for until the afternoon. Today they give you the weather and they're wrong. They're not even wrong about the same day or right about the same day. And you're expecting these UN IPCC people, but they were trying to say the whole point of all this stuff. And the reason I have to bring up these visual aids because people just don't believe it unless you show them and demonstrate stuff. And the idea is that they said, well, we're not going to the reason we'll buy from dictators and terrorists oil, okay? We're going to buy oil from dictators and terrorists but we won't use our own oil because we want to keep all that stuff capped and let that rot away and dismantle the U.S. because we want to move to electricity, right? Let's try to say like green energy or something like that, right? Now, here's something you got to understand about this, and this is the absurdity of this. So you have the oil, you have the gas, you have the fuel, all right? It's clean. It's natural gas too. It's pretty much clean. Okay. The pipeline was like, I believe it was going to be liquefied natural gas. In fact, we had so much oil a couple of years ago, or fossil fuels, what I call organic fuels. They come from the earth, made from plants, basically. All right. And our EPA standards are so high that the emissions of our energy plants, even the coal plants now, basically the only thing, the byproduct of it is basically water vapor. All right. It's like nuclear power plants. You see that stuff. That's what a coal plant looks like. It almost looks exactly like a nuclear power plant. It's just that they're putting coal in to heat the turbine, so to speak, heat things up, instead of the process of nuclear, the nuclear rods, whatever you want to call it. And so what comes up is it's heating up. It's the steam from the water, more or less. I'm not getting into specifics. I'm not. But I mean, basically, that's moving these turbines. Everything goes back to the original Tesla Tesla the man, not the car. All right, like 100 plus years ago. Whenever he created these turbine things, all right, alternating power, alternating current, AC. Remember, it's not Edison. Edison had DC power. It was useless. It ran a couple blocks, and then you had to recreate it again. And he was literally electrifying elephants on stage. The guy was a lunatic. He was a showman and a lunatic. And he stole, and he never even paid Nikola Tesla, for his work. Tesla did a lot of work for Edison, right? It helped him with what Edison got credit for breakthroughs, and Tesla just did it, because he wanted to set up his own lab, and Edison never paid him. And then then Edison fought him with his DC current, which was useless. He was electrifying elephants on stage with DC current. But Tesla won out in the end, and that's what we have today is AC, alternating current. And so the thing that allows us to have get power from dams, hydroelectric power and things like that, and even the things that allow these so-called windmills, the bird killers, to work, which are falling apart and are not an answer, are not a solution. Okay, was Tesla. So, to make a long story longer, all right, so these people are coming out and they're saying that they'll buy from dictators and terrorists because they don't want to use the natural gas and the natural resources that we have here in the U.S. and that had so much of that we were actually exporting to other countries, who in effect would be using it. And actually, technically, if there was any argument to be made from an environmental standpoint, it would have been to not export, because the countries using these raw materials, they don't have the EPA standards that we do. So in other words, when they would burn coal or they would burn, the whatever fuels we would send over, they didn't have the proper filtrations, sequestering, et cetera, that we do. Like I've said before, you'll see the coal, may or may not see the coal trucks going up, camera 2 up there in the corner, there's 2 power plants that are fueled by coal, not too far from here, And all you see there is they just give off steam, But the thing is, like I said 3 or 4 times now on different shows, the one was closed down for several years because it had to be refitted to meet the emission standards, so that there was nothing being put into the atmosphere as far as what they call greenhouse gases or whatever. Okay? CO2 is 0.004% of the atmosphere. Water vapor is a trace gas, just like methane is a trace gas. 99.9% of the Earth's atmosphere is comprised of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 0.9% argon. Okay, so that's 99.9% of the Earth's atmosphere is nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. And everything else, including CO2 and methane and all that, they're just trace gases. And out of that trace gas of CO2, the plants breathe, and we get crops, right? And which in turn the trees and the plants and the flowers all give us oxygen, okay? So we breathe. So we get food and oxygen, right? So CO2 basically gives this planet life, even in its such a trace form. It's not only do we have is our CO2 levels not high that we're being lied to, but we could go higher, and there would be more, and we need to go. We should be going higher right now. I mean, if we could, because we're facing crop shortages, and we're facing a cooling planet. Okay, a cooling planet. And the only thing that has any effect whatsoever in a major way on this planet is the sun. The sun is more responsible for the climate in more ways than just heat from that giant ball in the sky and the potential threat from CMEs and, solar flares, all of that stuff. But it also has a magnetic field that shields us from cosmic rays, et cetera, et cetera. It affects our magnetic field. We have a weakened magnetic field, and apparently the conveyor in the Atlantic is weakening, and it's looking like we may be approaching not exactly snowball Earth, but the Earth, this is an interglacial period. And civilizations rise and fall based on in these interglacial periods. And that's an argument that not everybody, not every straight-laced scientist might want to accept, because they didn't accept that, until Göbekli Tepe and some other archaeological digs, they didn't even accept that there were civilized, people, beyond, I don't know, 6,000, the Sumerians 6,000 some years ago. So, but we now know that 12,000 years ago, we had the Younger Dryas period, and that ice all just melted, right? But there was a flash freeze, and that's a whole nother story. So anyway, I made this coffee a little bit strong, but it actually tastes good. So I must have gotten into the hybrid of the Kona and Colombian coffee. And I don't want to drink too much coffee, but, I'm starting to like it. It's weird. Just black coffee. But good stuff, right? So, these people were saying, "Oh yeah, so we'll take oil from these dictators and these terrorists because we don't want to use our own stuff, which would save the American people. We've got runaway inflation, and oil's a part of it, but oil's only a small part of it. I mean, the price of everything's basically gone up. But we've broken the so-called glass ceiling of energy because people have SUVs. And if these electric cars are running on gas and coal. I mean, if there's a Tesla charging station near a dam where there's hydroelectric power, or it's right, maybe at some spot, out in the Mojave Desert or something where they might have some giant solar array, it may be getting energy, but these things don't generate enough. And whenever the government and the Department of Energy, they try to put statistics or pie charts together, all right, they always basically, it's like everything else. They exaggerate and they literally deceive you. because the primary source of electricity in this country is natural gas. It's not leading to any problems. All right? So why would you get this stuff from Venezuela, from a dictator who wasn't even elected? Right? Some other guy was elected, president of Venezuela, and Biden's dealing with the guy who's like the dictator, who's like basically, and who's not only in league with Putin, but he more or less is another. He's exactly like Putin. He's just somebody saying, "No, I'm the fucking president." That was an old. There was a movie once. Wasn't that funny, but the Smothers Brothers had a movie out, and there was a scene in there once where some guy goes, "I'm the fucking president." Anyway, yeah, you know what I'm doing right now? Clipping my nail. It would bother me on my one finger. Sorry, I had to do that. What can one say?
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
This is my show. It's my show, my vlog. So, yeah, I mean, people get ready. The trains are coming. Because the real coming climate is going to look more like that snowball on the screen. So how could these people, they lie so much? And how do people fall for it? And look at all the exposure that is coming out about what's been going on the past couple, this big, the last big thing for the last 2 years. And of course, we're in the midst of something right now that we don't know much about that at all. Right? We're hearing one side of the story, right? But we don't know the story about who stuck who, who put the stick in the hornet's nest is not being told. And is not being told that this goes back some 8 years. And that there's no reason for this to have happened. And nobody's talking about the 13,000 Russians and the separatists that have been killed over that period of time. There's a lot being left out. That doesn't absolve anyone of anything. But the truth, at least needs to be told. So people have an understanding of what I call socioeconomic geopolitics. So when these things occur, people can actually see what's going on. And the idea of jingoism and this movement towards war in this volatile planet right now. So, we're going to be propping up a dictator in Venezuela. That guy's been dying to get somebody to buy his oil. Right? We're going to deal with people again in the Middle East, which will only lead to Middle Eastern war again and more terrorism. Right? They're renegotiating with Iran this nuclear thing. They literally want nukes, but they came out and said they want to, use those nukes to, basically fire them at Israel. Right? And oddly enough, both Iran and Venezuela are in league, partnered with Russia. So in one regard, they're saying, we're not going to take any oil from Russia, but we're going to take oil from their surrogates, which may well be Russian oil, in effect. Or, they have Russia negotiating, as a negotiator in the Iran-U.S. deal. I mean, the average person just doesn't see. It's not absurd. It's surreal. Yeah, and that's what I was thinking about when I was like waking up today. The cat did the same thing. It's like waking me up around midnight, 1 o'clock. It's like, luckily I didn't crawl out of bed till about 2:20. I can't believe it's 3:45 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. And I'm on the air. You know, of course, talking to nobody. No one in their right mind would be up at this hour except me. Ain't nobody here but us chickens. But so why did the cat want to wake me up so much if it didn't want to eat its food? I don't know. Hopefully when the show's over and I go back in the kitchen, he came back down and ate it. It's like one thing to be finicky with his dry food, which he had been, which I thought because he had a little constipation problem or something. But now that he's getting wet food, so hopefully the vet will have an answer for that. Poor thing. He's getting a little bit older, but he's not old the way he should be. You know, animals these days, domesticated animals, cats and dogs are living almost half as long as they did 50 years ago. And it just so happens that during that 50 years, this whole industry of like so-called healthy foods and the veterinarians, like there's a vet in, several vets in every town in America now. Veterinarians became like a common thing. So now we have vets everywhere, right? Charging ridiculous amounts of money like medical doctors and all kinds of like fresh food and healthy foods for these animals. And the animals are dying like 10 years earlier than they used to. It's like humans. Just recently in the past couple of years, post had nothing to do with this plague thing. Prior to that, the life expectancy of humans in the U.S. dropped by 2 years. So you're telling me that, big pharma and big medicine, for lack of a better word, Mick medicine we have, really, right? You go in, you get 15 minutes with the doctor. They barely remember you. By the time they get it, look at your file, it's like a psychiatrist. That time's up. So people are dying. Like I said, 40,000 people a week on average are dying needlessly of diseases and ailments that are either treatable, preventable, or curable. And yet we have so-called one of the best healthcare systems in the world, and big pharma and all these companies are raking in billions and billions of dollars. It's the same with like law enforcement and stuff. You've got this supposed like the DOJ, FBI, and all these police departments have all this equipment and all this funding, right? They talk about defunding, but the fact is they've got so much stuff, right? I mean, they basically look like Roman gladiators, right? And yet there's 2,000 people on average murdered every frickin' week in the United States. In other words, last week, right? I don't know how many people died in that war over in Ukraine, okay? But it might have been several thousand. Well, perhaps as many as, 10 times as many people died last week right here in the U.S. Horribly. Were killed or died unnecessarily in 1 week. In 1 week. So do you understand? Do you see how we're in Psychoville? Right? That was like a title of one of my other shows. In other words, look at this thing or this thing. It's so weird how backwards everything is. Look at that picture. Okay. All right. And they're telling us that the planet's heating up because of CO2. 0.004 CO2, when 99.9% of the atmosphere is nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. CO2 is a trace gas. And they're saying that, when I'm telling you that's really what's going on, and we should be worried about it. And then they want to drop all their so-called fossil fuels or organic fuels, right? The fuels we get from the earth, organic, they come from plants and stuff. It's organic material, right? And it's basically, like I said, our emission standards in the US are like the highest in the world. And they want to say, oh, we want to move to electricity, electric cars, but it's like, what's going to feed the electric cars? Where's the power come from? You can't put any more windmills up. There's no more space. They've just covered everything, covered every beautiful landscape and highway practically in the entire country. Any place there's wind. And now those things are all breaking down and nobody's fixing them because there's no chain of custody. They were all scams. You know, there was always, in the early days, there was talk, oh, our energy prices will go down and blah, 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 blah. Our energy prices shot through the roof. And these things have fallen down. They started trading them on Wall Street. Now nobody knows who owns them, just like they never knew who owned the mortgages in the 2008, 2009 recession. We're heading for a big crash, all right? And we're being lied to on a daily basis, right? So, you know, it's like the title of this show is like War, Climate, Bugs, what'll they throw at us next? And I put a chat in here, anything to scare people into submission. But it's like, submit to what? You know? I mean, what are these people? I mean, when is enough and how much money do they really need? You know, these Davos people, they're already billionaires, multi-billionaires. I mean, freaking guys like Bezos, the guy's got a bunker under this like rock, you know, that he could literally almost walk to, but like quickly get to a rocket to get off the earth if he has to. And he's got some kind of like unbelievable yacht that was being built up in, you know, Northern Europe. You know, I don't know if it was Sweden, Norway, one of those countries, and that he has so much power that they're going to dismantle a bridge because it's so big, so they could get it out of the port or you know, the shipyard or wherever where they built it. And that's his like arc to survive the oncoming disaster. See, it's not like these guys don't know it. Then they built up in Svalbard, and that was a couple decades ago, this seed vault, right? You know, because they're planning for this thing, right? And they've got all these underground, people hear these booms and stuff, and they're using all these underground, you know, bunkers, right, for this continuity of government and continuity of the ruling elite, continuity of billionaires, basically. And I don't know if I trust Elon Musk that much either, and wondering what all, you know, his front of some of these things are, and his real plan is, if he's planning to escape. But the thing these people don't understand, if we're in the 12,000 year cycle, which it seems we are, because most of the evidence points towards that what a lot of these guys don't understand is that, and I've read this thing before, that CIA that the document that the CIA had classified for 50 years, but they finally released it, you know, still redacted some of it, but I mean, majority of it was released. I read it twice on this show. This disaster, you know, this basically, you know, it spells out an Earth catastrophe. But that doesn't just happen here. The outer shell of the sun is basically expelled into the solar system, you know, in all directions. So it doesn't matter. It's not like a solar flare or something like that, where it's like, it says wherever these, you know, sunspots are let's say Earth facing or something like that. No, this is, you know, goes everywhere. So Mars, Venus, everybody gets hit by it. Right? And we're seeing the same magnetic anomalies occurring on some of the other planets right now. Like we have. And you're not hearing anyone talk about that. And I don't know why. Why wouldn't they? In other words, the magnetic South Pole, okay, has migrated from Antarctica, from the South Pole, that it's no longer on the continent of Antarctica. And the magnetic, North Pole has migrated towards Siberia. Have you heard that? Where's the UNIPCC? Are they talking about how the mid-Atlantic, conveyor that keeps Europe and the northern latitudes warmer than they should be? That it's slowing down? Did I tell you that our magnetic field has been slowing down a lot, which protects us from cosmic rays and all kinds of other stuff? And even from solar rays. And affects weather patterns. No, they're not telling you this stuff. Right? Instead, they're like trying, I don't know. So is this all some kind of diversionary tactic so that we're so caught up with worrying about catching some kind of bug or these various wars erupting and, and fear that the planet's going to heat up while the planet freezes up and while these guys can safely get to their bunkers where they think they're going to be safe. But my understanding of this Earth cataclysm is that underground is actually, there's no place to run, no place to hide. And that the people who survived, they did survive. The survivors were people who survived underground in different cave systems and what have you. But it was just happenstance. It was luck. Because we don't know if the Earth actually spins on its side and then goes back up. So in other words, the equator temporarily is, in the northern latitudes. Or stays that way, or turns. It may stop. One theory, Doug Vogt has it, the Earth actually stopping for a period of 8 hours, and then we will be rotating in the opposite direction. You've never heard any of this stuff. The average person hasn't heard of this stuff. I've said it before. Go to suspiciousobservers.org, Ben Davidson's site, and watch, his video, or go to Doug Vogt, right? And if you just want to get an idea that's more like over the top, this goes back to Velikovsky's writings, which you could find free on the internet, some of his stuff, which going to seem very fantastic and sci-fi to you. Or Chan Thomas, just do a search on the Chan Thomas document called The Adam and Eve Story, which has nothing to do with a biblical story. It's just the title of the book. Chan Thomas, story, Adam and Eve story, CIA.gov, or, suppressed by the CIA, do some search on that and read some of that, and you'll just freak out. You understand, why would the CIA, and it's still, classify a document for 50 years about an Earth catastrophe? It's weird. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. Now, if you happen to be somebody who keeps up on, astrophysics and and anthropology and archaeology and earth sciences, and read those various journals. I'm talking about the peer-reviewed journals, not just some people writing some website or something. You will start seeing the evidence mounting up that all of these earth changes are happening right now. And that a lot of these things that the media is still talking about are no longer are being disproved almost on a weekly basis. So it's like something fishy going on, like really fishy. So, like I said, I have compassion, and I'm an anti-war person. I've always been. I mean, who would? I mean, is there some reason to be pro-war? I mean, I understand maybe mercenaries and people like that. Professional soldiers, I guess it's their job, right? They get paid to do it. What's the difference between that and being a paid, hitman or something, right? I guess if you make your money, merchants of death, right? But I'm against all these wars and I think anybody with any rational person would be. But the idea is there's more people dying here in the U.S. than who are dying in Ukraine. And this so-called nuclear war threat is not realistic. I mean, there is a possibility. They do have these limited nukes now. The U.S. has them. So it makes sense that Russia and China would probably have them. So, it could cause, localized, perhaps even regional problems. And of course, the uptick in cancer and the weirdness that, we're all suffering from, I still blame on the fact that we blew two nukes off, and then we had all those nuclear tests for years, right? Not to mention that we had, Fukushima, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and whatever else they haven't told us about. But there were so many accidents and so many tests that, they never told us, about that. See, nuclear power is safe, modern day nuclear power. That's not the question. But all those nuclear tests, done up through the 50s and, whenever they halted them, I don't know if they went into the 60s, but they moved underground there for a while or whatever. My uncle was a military man who was oversaw some of those tests. And when he died, he had cancer in every part of his body, they said. There was nothing that they could do. Because, it takes years, for a lot of that stuff. That's why, like, x-rays, people who fly in planes all the time and stuff like that, high up there and stuff, you're being exposed to this stuff. Like, I didn't like this idea of them giving me all these CRTs, or these CRTs, these CT scans. And the last time they did one on my head, man, it's like, 8 years or something. I don't know. Anything could happen, They just do this stuff and they go, oh, they're safe. Some nurse who doesn't even know. She didn't know what she's talking about. She's not a nuclear scientist, right? I mean, she didn't know anything. Oh, they're safer than you can imagine. Yeah, well, then why are you moving to the next room and with a lead, with a lead shield over yourself? Why don't you stand beside me if it's so safe? Right? I know one woman that she had like 8 or 9 of them here while she was in the hospital. Yeah, and she's probably going to be glowing in 5 years. Because the thing is, or the various mutations of the cells, she'll just have like tumors all over her frickin' body, as these things mutate. It's crazy time, it's romper room.
Hey, it's me. How you doing, man?
I don't know. I'm grown accustomed to the taste of the coffee. No, I'm just trying to deal with this ridiculousness that's going on right now. And I just still can't understand how people are glued to the TV and they're just like soaking this stuff in. And these people are so-called YouTube millionaires are making millions on it. And, and then you got these guys who are using their YouTube millions and they're building themselves like little fortresses and talking about the Second Amendment and stocking up on guns and stuff. Like, they don't get it. That's not going to save you. That's not going to save you. And save you for what? Right? It's like these people who have it's like the concept of the fallout shelter. Unless you have it. Remember that movie with Christopher Walken and that whatever his name is was in movies for a while, and then he fell out of favor. Brandon somebody, I don't know if that was his name, but you know what I'm talking about. But he went into it, they built a fallout shelter, and it was like a house. So the kid grew up in this house. So it was the wife, Christopher Walken was the father, the wife, and this kid. And they had this fallout shelter because they thought there was, in the 60s or something, they thought the late 50s or 60s, they thought there was a nuclear thing, but it turned out it wasn't. And then eventually later on they came up because they weren't detecting whatever. The door opened for some reason after 50 years or something. It was a funny movie. And, and then they had to deal with society, But unless you have a fallout shelter like that in that movie where you can live a normal life and there's people there and it's whatever, this idea of people who have these bunkers, it's like, how long do you think you're going to last in there? Right? And have you really thought it out? And you really have some kind of like super air filtration system and stuff that, that's going to, I don't know. Do you have it? When I see these people, they buying up all these things, these sacks of rice or these like MRE type of things. And I'm thinking, and they've got bunkers and you see storage, these metal storage racks and all this stuff. And then they've got piles of guns and ammo and stuff. And I keep thinking, well, like, where are your treadmasters? Where's your, your power generation coming from? Have you set up a geothermal heating and cooling system underground? You see what I mean? See, the stuff that the ruling elite, they literally have like, livable places. And for them, it's no big deal because, just think of the average bureaucrat, okay? You're an average bureaucrat and you're going to work in D.C., New York, or L.A., some government-type bureaucrat or even some corporate-type bureaucrat, because it's the same damn thing, all right? Because that's why they don't have any idea of the real world, like the sun and stuff like that. They don't know. Lockdowns is no big deal for them because their whole life is a lockdown, right? So they live in some house or they live in some doorman building condominium type of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. They come out the front door literally in seconds and get in this like bulletproof SUV or, whatever, picks them up. They go and they pull right into the underground garage of this building, right, where they work. Some of them windowless or whatever, or whether they have windows or not, it doesn't matter. You could simulate the window because half of them are like tinted, right, to prevent spies. The paranoia of the bureaucrats and the alphabet agencies and the government types and the corporate espionage too. And that's it. And their whole life, pretty much 90% of their life is indoor. And even if they go to a gym, it's like some indoor gym, and then they might have a vacation where they would go to the beach or something, those that even give a crap about that. So these people don't care. So they build these bunkers and it's home sweet home. I've seen them. And some of the bunkers are better, like they're really like condos underground. and they go multi-levels. You can see like some promotional commercials by big companies that are offering these places. I never really talked about this before, but this stuff, you could probably do a deep search on YouTube and find this kind of thing. You'd have to really get down the rabbit hole. Somehow I found them one time by accident. You know, things that come up in your recommended list sometimes just out of the blue or something. And I saw this one place that they were showing a model, and in it was like this swimming pool. The walls were changeable, lighted, like out of some sci-fi movie you'd see in one of these long, deep spacecraft. I mean, in other words, they could have like a beach scene, the entire wall being a beach scene or being a landscape or an ocean, right? Sunrise. In your bedroom, you could have the sun rising, the wall be the sun rising in the morning, a Hawaiian sunrise in your bedroom. You see? And then you have this house with this kitchen, living room, and a swimming pool and stuff. And then you could go out into like common areas that are like courtyards and, all sorts of other stuff. And they have greenhouses in there, right? And stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, seriously. No joke. I'm not exaggerating. And there are like thousands of these types of places all over the world being, built, having been built. And that, there's like waiting list, I think. I don't even think if you like won the lottery and you go, I want to get me one of them, you probably couldn't even get one right now. And all these people bought up, in specific places, like for some reason that a lot of people feel as if, New Zealand is somehow going to be some survival thing. Like, I don't know where they got that, right? But all these billionaires bought up places in New Zealand. Like, what are they thinking? Or what do they know, right? That we don't know. Like, that puzzled me. Because I would think New Zealand would be the last place you'd want to be for a couple of reasons. One, it's like kind of like a big island nation, which means that this 2-mile-high tsunami would pretty much, devastate New Zealand. Number two, it's basically, Southeast Asia, more or less, and that, it seemed to me that there would be nuclear fallout, in some World War III China type of war, right? It's close, I don't know. It just doesn't make any logical sense. So unless there's some science that they've been studying, so they're maybe not comparing notes with the rest of us who have been looking into the science of this. So I don't know. Or they're just totally out of touch with reality, or halfway there, or they don't want to believe, the whole story, Bezos really did build this ark, and it's so frickin' big that they literally have to take a bridge down, right? Dismantle a bridge to get it out of the port, wherever it is. And I don't know if they've started to take the bridge down or it's already out or not, but that was the story. And he does have a rocket that is like just not far from his like under rock bunker place. This stuff's for real. This is real. So, and like I say, I read that CIA document to you. I mean, this is no joke, man. So they know that the Earth is, is ultimately going back to looking something like what you're seeing on the screen. They know about this 12,000-year cataclysm, all right? It's not that, They know that CO2 is only a trace gas. They know that the emissions, from so-called fossil fuels in the U.S. are like minimal. They have to know, the real people know, that electricity, is come in the U.S. and everywhere else comes from a source. And the source, the primary source of electricity is natural gas. And they also must know that you can't heat the northern part of the U.S. with solar panels. And there's no major dams and things like that for us to put hydroelectric power. So they keep talking about this stuff, and all these kids and all these people are like, oh yeah, we need to like have like more electric cars. And you know, and Tesla's just raking in billions, or Elon Musk is raking in billions through his company Tesla, you know, on all this stuff. But you know, he knows, you know, he's a real opportunist, that guy. You know, he's playing into every one of their games, and he's making billions and billions of dollars on this stuff. You know, he's up there with Bezos. I mean, these guys are making a freaking lot of money. And it's funny, these guys, the richest guys, all have rockets. Isn't that weird, right? The richest guys are all in the rocket business. Just kind of makes you wonder. Like, you know, because you don't know what's going on. And, you know, and they have that whole Space Force idea, which is really still a secret. They tried to make some comical, make fun of it movie on, like, Netflix or one of those, Amazon Prime. I don't know what it is. I think they have a second season. I never watched it because, I don't know. I watched it, like, what the coming attraction of was, and I just couldn't. I don't like when someone tries to, like, take something that's serious and seriously suspect and poking fun at it. It smells to me the high heaven of, you know, that the government funded that thing, you know, keep people out of touch, you know, not so they don't really look at it. My guess is that these guys have some idea of building some space station on the dark side of the moon, or like on, you know, a movable space station that they think that they can shield from this solar outburst or some cataclysm, and that they're all going to hop in their rockets and go up there and live there. It's kind of like that movie. Is it the 100 or something, where all those kids were sent up in space, then they came down, and then it got really, I watched it for a while, the 400, or I don't know what it was. But they, you know, they roll up there like frozen, and then they were unfrozen, and they came back down to Earth, and there were survivors on the Earth, and then there was, like, you know, these battles, and then I don't know, there was some kind of weird thing happened with, then they got refrozen, and then there was time. I don't know, it was really freaky and weird, but it was just my kind of sci-fi, because there wasn't, you know, while it was right before the ideological bullshit took over Hollywood, right? So it was focused, it was sci-fi, and it was weird and all that stuff. But I mean, it wasn't like they were, every episode had to throw in, you know, half the episode had to be about some kind of narrative ideology or something. It's like, no, it was just a genuine, you know, good show, and the cast was diverse and all that stuff, like real life. You know, it's like, we don't need any of this stuff that they're doing and shoving down people's throats, because it's like, it's just like causing people to, like, get pissed off, instead of just, like, letting us just live our lives the way we were since the 70s in peace and love and harmony. Right? Because that's another 99%. 99.9% of the people, you know, didn't die of the thing. 99.9% of the atmosphere is in CO2. 99, you know, percent of, you know, everything's a 99, aren't, like, have any concern about any of all this stuff that they're trying to indoctrinate people with and propagandize on TV and in the movies and television. 99% of the people don't need that. Their reinforcement and that's shoved down their throat. They didn't care. Now I guess they do, because it's an issue. So now you're pitting people. But I don't know. So what's the story? You know, what are they doing? Why are all these billionaires got rockets? Why are they all like buying up all these like, you know, bunkers and shelters? Why are they all like, why'd they buy up like New Zealand and stuff? And, you know, and they have like, you know, New Zealand's one of like these big, like Australia too, like this big heavy duty martial law type of places. Right. So that where like they call themselves democracies, but the people who are in charge have like dictatorial rule. I mean, it's happened in the U.S. too. You know, the governors in many states here in the U.S. are like dictators. And of course, our federal government now has become a dictatorship. Right. Because you don't even hear much about Congress anymore. You know, it's funny. It's a midterm election where the House gets completely, has to like hold their seats, and some Senate seats are up for grabs too, but not all. But the House is. But you know, apart from the spam that I get, you know, in emails, fundraising things, which I have no interest in, which I'm sick of getting, you don't really hear much about it because. You know, I don't think they really care. I think the outcome's already decided. We don't really we don't really have a democratic electoral process anymore, you know? Yeah, they already know what's going on. And they don't really care, I don't think. That's what I was trying to say. I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter if there's some visual. I think in my estimation of this entire thing is that The Great Reset happened in 2020, okay? Prior to the election even, all right? The 2020 election. The Great Reset was basically put in place, right? The Great Reset probably began in the summer of 2019 when, if you ever saw that Sky News interview with the former head of intelligence and the former head of the CIA, who later became the head of the State Department. Okay, they were interviewed within the past year by Sky News, and it was a fairly long interview, like a sit-down interview, right? And they were talking about like everything from Wuhan and all that kind of stuff. And those guys in that interview, and you could still catch that. You'd have to go through Sky News stuff. So I'm not telling you anything. This isn't my opinion. I'm not trying to like pretend, for you YouTube algorithms and stuff. And they basically were saying that they had their suspicions. When an intelligence agency tells you they have suspicions, or they have, or they said that in the summer of 2019 they already were looking at China and Wuhan. And of course, subsequent documents have come out with the guy, whose name begins with an F. And I'm still not sure if you're allowed to talk about him. That, date back even further than that and stuff. And then there's a money trail, and there's all kinds of emails, memos, and all kinds of stuff. So the point is that thing happened, the Great Reset, and Davos has been going on every year. Bloomberg and CNBC and Fox Business, those financial networks, they've been covering that for years. And those videos from presentations and their PowerPoints and stuff have been like publicly available. And some of that stuff is like, you talk about sci-fi. It's like, it's off the wall. I mean, it's really out there. I mean, really, really, really out there.
Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, not what you don't.
Yeah, not what you don't. So that's a long time ago now, And so none of this matters. So everything you see is rolling out and is proceeding as planned. And like I said, there was you could take what's going on in Ukraine back to the Obama administration 8 years ago in 2014. and earlier, the so-called, what they call separatists, but the eastern side. But you had the Russians, and basically people that try to say Putin, but there's more than Putin involved in the control system of Russia. I mean, I got to somebody, a Russian, like some band, following me on Reverb Nation, from Russia, and I followed them back and stuff, making some interesting music. Yeah, the Russian people, I mean, like I said, every Russian I've ever met, I always liked. You know what I mean? People are people. But, it's not just one man's war over there, the way the media is like portraying it. You know what I mean? There is an upper echelon. That would be like saying, that would be like pointing everything at Biden. Yeah, he's a lunatic. He doesn't have in his mind, oh, go get him, whatever he's talking about. Right? But it's like, no, it's all the people he has around him, and then the various levels of the, underlings and the bureaucracies and stuff. Well, they have the same things going on over there. It's not one guy, right? But anyway, so they've been trying to make this point about NATO encroachment for a long time. Some 13,000 people were killed on the eastern side of Ukraine. Russians were killed, and these separatists and Russians were killed over those past 8 years. And, and yet they've been trying to push for a diplomatic solution all along. And and the Biden and the Obama administration put Biden in charge as the point man in Ukraine. And instead his son ends up working for an oil company, corrupt oil company over there, where like half these guys have gone to jail already. And, and make some deal with the president, to fire some guy who was going to prosecute the company his son was working for. And he did nothing about the Russian thing. And while no war or any kind of activity happened under the Trump administration, the Trump administration was well aware of what was going on over there and what Russia was trying to talk about. And what he did was under Trump, he strengthened up. He said that his deal with NATO was NATO needed to fess up, come up and put up money, right? If they wanted, the U.S. didn't want to basically be, fund NATO. And so in effect, he strengthened NATO. He didn't do anything. And, one could argue and say, I'm in the socioeconomic geopolitics right now for things you just don't hear being talked about. Now, one could argue that the Russia stuff that the media and the left were pushing against Trump at the time was to keep him from meeting with Putin and coming up with a diplomatic solution. You see? That is a possibility. And so at the time, there was never any incursion, but there was still, it wasn't as if there wasn't ongoing fighting on the eastern side of Ukraine and people dying in large numbers, more so than have died like during this current, incursion. They call it a war, right? So you didn't know that, right? Not many people know that at all. But it's not like it's classified, right? It's just what happened. You just have to pay attention to like international affairs, right? See, these things are discussed, by think tanks, and are put out in press releases and like the Davos meetings and stuff like that. They don't really hide it. It's hidden in plain sight because the average person, like, they don't remember how the Great Reset was a conspiracy theory, until till finally someone saw that actually this Klaus guy actually wrote a book called The Great Reset, and it's actually on their website, the outline for it. And at the World Economic Forum, they were saying, "Oh, that's a conspiracy theory," but there really is one, and that's the Davos that's the meeting they have every year at Davos. So do you understand the head games they play on the average person? And I'm sure I think the majority of people in the U.S. right now still don't know that that's real, right? And when I say Klaus, they're like, Klaus who? Who are you talking about, right? And they don't understand that the EU is like Hitler's Greater Germany. What literally was exactly the map he had laid out. That was his plan, and it's come to fruition as the EU, right? And NATO is literally the force, is basically, acting as their, well, I don't know. Like I say, people are so far out of the loop and so out of touch with like the real socioeconomic geopolitics of what's going on in the world that, this stuff to them seems like, what is he talking about? It's the same with when I say 99% of the atmosphere is nitrogen, oxygen, and argon, and show this picture of, of the Earth, which is where we're really headed. People are going like, what planet, where's that guy? Where's your tinfoil hat? It's like, no, this is the real science, this is the reality, what I'm talking about. It's like they don't listen. They don't watch the foreign press. They don't read press releases, right? They don't see, like, they get something that comes over their smartphone for news or something, or they watch like Joe Rogan, right? Or Tim Pool or Dan Bongino, or whether it's MSNBC, CNN, quarter in the thing, Fox or ABC, NPR, whatever. They're like into these headlines and these sound bites and these weird, ideologues that are just putting out this either a headline, a sound bite, a video clip, or in some kind of interview giving some weird narrative, but the interviewer never questions them, like calls them on something. We'll say, well, what do you have to back that up? Right? They never say that. They just like accept it. And so people believe the most fantastical things, and yet when they hear the truth, they look at that as fantastical. And I end up with like 0 viewers, listeners, I think I've been getting an average now. I'm up to like maybe 7 views or something like that, or listens, podcast listens, whatever. I don't know, something like that. It's weird. It's really weird. And it's the way it is, though. And that's why I've been, saying recently on my shows that it doesn't really matter. And that's what this whole game over, thing is about. And I really wish people would get, the game over, get some of these, shirts or hats or hoodies, or there's all kinds of things. Heck, you could get like a cooking, whatever you call that, thing you wear when you cook. I mean, there's so many things available now on the store. With you don't know what you don't know. Everything you know is wrong. Game over. Then what? Right? The ROCKFLUX logo. With the, and it's like, you really ought to, and you really should get some great solar stuff, because, this grid is falling apart and there's hard times ahead. And if you want to be able to make some, survive and thrive for a little while, you ought to really consider things. If you go to my YouTube channel, ROCKFLUX, which is what this is, there's a link to my Instagram account there, I believe, upper right-hand side. And you'll see some of the stuff I'm growing inside a closet in my house right now. I don't know what today's going to be like. I need to start in the next 2 weeks. Spring is really next Sunday is spring. Not this coming Sunday, but the Sunday after. This Sunday, I believe we set the clocks ahead, spring ahead. Boy, is that a pain. I got so many clocks, But yeah, this Sunday you spring ahead hour. So it's an hour more of daylight at night. And I guess darker in the morning or something. I just wish they'd get rid of that. I'm so tired of doing that twice a year. Makes no sense. Doesn't mean anything, These things that happen and they just won't change, right? It's ridiculous. But yeah, I've got to get my garden ready over the next 2 weeks because it's about that time. But, I've started. I pruned the necessary things that had to be pruned. Now it's a matter of just like cutting my grapevines. I've kind of resigned myself that I don't know. I think I might get some grapes towards the back of my yard, but that towards the front, where I built this other pergola, it's the place where the main root, where it took root, it's in such an odd place so close to my house that I don't really have unless I would build the pergola off of my house kind of and have grapes growing on this in my back, my back windows or something. It's what happened. I didn't plant the grapes originally. The birds, when you feed birds, I have a blackberry bush that I hope comes back this year. But, it comes from birds. Birds eat these seeds and, they sit on a fence and the next thing you know, they bring this stuff with them. But anyway, and I'm hoping I get apples this year. It would be nice. But I probably should next year. But I did prune my apple trees several weeks ago at the right time. And the shape of them I think I got it right. So I'm hoping to have fruit and vegetables growing in my backyard, in this garden, which again, as I always have to say, is 2 years. This picture's 2 years old. I have to take an updated picture this summer. But if you want to see last year's, if you go to my ROCKFLUX channel on YouTube, ROCKFLUX, you go to videos, you can see garden, videos. And I did some of these neat slow-mo things where I talk over them. That's how I began. This would be going back to 2019 almost. But last year, I intermittently did some garden videos in the summertime and stuff. So you can get a feel for the growth and stuff. But, I'm growing indoors too, and successfully. If you look at my Instagram account, I put up 6 pictures yesterday of some stuff that's just growing in the house. Kale, cilantro, radishes, onions, garlic. I had this oregano growing pretty darn nice and some basil, but I somewhere along the line I neglected it a couple 3 or 4 weeks ago. I don't know what I was. It's probably while I was going through these problems with this gallbladder stuff was weighing heavy on me, and I just wasn't paying enough attention there. I mean, right now I'm just at a state of equilibrium, kind of thing. But I've been overwhelmed, between dealing with the cat, dealing with this gall health issues, dealing with the roof leaking, right? And then these ridiculous things like lights smack the door. I mean, weirdness. And then just the general struggle of life, right? That, it's hard to keep, it's a lot of stuff. It's like, a lot of multitasking, and I've been helping a couple people out on, with some things. So be that as it may, I still have been successfully able to grow stuff, and I've catnip growing out there and all that stuff. So in a porch in cold weather in the winter, it's March, So a lot of that stuff will be moving out, so I'll have a head start when the time comes. But those radishes I will just probably harvest in the house. And the kale I've already eaten a number of times, some of that kale. So, but the onions and the garlic I'll put in the ground. And I don't have to worry about oregano. I've got I'll have oregano bushes last year. I never pulled a lot of stuff out. So I have a lot of work to do out there, a lot of like dirty work, raking, digging, preparing, and I got to get a couple of bags of soil for my raised beds. And the price of that has like doubled to tripled. It's crazy. But it's not as bad because I've been working the soil every year and building it up. So I should be okay. I just really need to top off a lot and, make sure I have the right nutrients and things like that in the ground. I'm not worried so much about like high volumes of soil. I have a compost bin, but it's not really. I've had so many clippings that I've had to take down because of cutting these trees and bushes and stuff that's grown wild, that compost bin's going to have to sit for another year or so. I need a lot of that stuff to just I got to cover it with the tarp this summer and let that just, shrink to nothing. So, yeah, it's nuts out there. People are crazy. But, and I know you're living, many of you are living well. And a lot of this stuff, that I'm saying is like it either comes as a shock or seems far out. You weigh the odds of it happening is very, very remote. And you look at somebody like me who says, I'm living at the poverty level, right? And, dealing with these roof leaks and all this other stuff. And you don't understand. I guess somebody supposedly sent me like a fraction of some Bitcoin after one of my videos, and I can't seem to find it. Like, I don't know where it went or how it, So much for that. And I don't know if it's like, what it amounts to. If it amounted to, with the way the current price of Bitcoin, if it would be $100 or if it would be $3. I mean, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's weird. And now I understand that the government's, clamping down on Bitcoin, so they want to basically take control of that, which kind of like central control of Bitcoin defeats the purpose of Bitcoin, right? I mean, you'd still have peer-to-peer type of stuff, but what they want to do is somehow get involved in the exchange. Well, they're already involved in the exchanges, but I mean, somehow track it. And I think I was getting into this yesterday. It's like, it would probably make sense that, for all we know, through DARPA or whatever, and Alphabet, because we know Alphabet/Google is in with DARPA and the government, that for all we know, they already have, the supercomputer type of quantum or /supercomputer that can, decrypt crypto. And as far out as that sounds to the average person, it's not. I've because I follow that because I'm a geek and I'm a coder from way back. And the concept is that, well, if you can decrypt it, you can encrypt it. But the point is, it's a matter of who has the money and the resources to maintain that type of computing power. And it's basically, it's people like Alphabet and DARPA, the government. But it's also governments like China as well. People that'll put resources into it. I don't know if you're aware, yesterday was Apple's announcement of their new chip, their Ultra. And they've got a new computer now that you can get the Ultra chip in. And a new monitor that's pretty far out that has a chip in it. And it's about, I think if you get it all like tricked out, it would be a $10,000 system. And I think if you got it not tricked out, you could probably get it for about $5,000. Which, in years gone by when I was making money and, getting a regular income from, various projects I was working on, I probably would buy it because I would be using it. But at this point, that's just out of my, if somebody wants to gift me the brand new Apple computer with the Ultra chip tricked out with all the, 128, gigabytes and, everything, I forget, there's like a ridiculous, the terabyte, there's an SSD terabyte drive, and there's one that's like, is it 8 terabytes or 16 terabytes? I mean, it's an insane thing. I mean, you really need to have no external storage whatsoever. And almost, it eliminates the need for the cloud, 16 terabytes. But unless you're doing movies, but you literally, this new chip, you could easily create a feature film on it. Right. Literally. It's that powerful. It's unbelievable. So that was their big announcement. That and a couple of small iPhones that were like $400 some, which apparently someone told me, wow, that's pretty cheap for an iPhone. And I'm thinking $400. I'd like to see one, maybe if they had one for $169, I'd consider getting one because mine's just about shot. And not that I really want to use it, but it's like, I just would want it, I just use it for Wi-Fi, email. I wouldn't get a cell phone service with it. So I would have to buy it for cash. So $400 some. So yeah, you're welcome to gift me an iPhone too. Not that anyone's going to do. And does it really matter as we're on the cusp or we're standing on the precipice of the grid probably failing, and it's already dystopia, American dystopia, and the Mad Max world is just spreading, with each passing week. And I still get back to this idea that some 40,000 people a week are dying in this country unnecessarily. And 2,000 people are murdered, and thousands and thousands more are being assaulted, raped, and, abused. And yet our media will go 24/7 on Ukraine. Not that there isn't a tragedy going on there and all that sort of thing. But do you understand that tragedy pales in comparison to what's happening right here in our own country? And then we have people in charge of the energy department who are talking about, well, the reason we'll deal with dictators and all these other people and buy oil from them and prop them up is because we want to move to electricity, as if electricity doesn't come from, natural gas. And heat. Like, do they understand the concept of BTUs, of thermal units, right? That the major cities in the U.S., I mean, how many times do I have to say it? Boston, New York, right? Even D.C., Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, right? Work your way over, Chicago, Detroit, all the way to the West Coast, in Seattle and stuff. Do they understand the whole, the plains? I mean, that we get winter, snow, ice. Like I said, I'm looking at my thing. Today is March 9th. All right. It's currently 37 degrees outside. Apparently, they say it's snowing. Though it's hard to see anything. I don't really see it. But north of here, it's raining, allegedly, over the mountain. 100% chance of snow today. But it's 37 degrees, but I'm looking at this thing. And let me just move it up so I can see more of it. Oh, what? Straight through Sunday, I mean, literally Saturday night, it's going to be 12 degrees. And the high that day, 100% chance of snow on this coming Saturday, is freezing, 0 Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And the same on Sunday, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and then below zero, below freezing. They just updated that, but still below. They updated Saturday to 14 degrees from 12 while I've been looking at it. So it must have just made the connection. But then Friday, there's going to be this day where it goes we'll have one day where it goes up to 50 for some reason. It's a very weird thing. And so the temperature today now has changed to 100% chance of thunderstorms instead of snow. And the temperature is going to be 39, but the overnight 27. But when I'm looking at the current, weather, it's showing snowflakes through 8 a.m. Do you see what I'm trying to get across? They don't know the weather from just an hour or so ago. It changes. In other words, these people are meteorologists. Like I say, they must have bachelor of science degrees, went to college and got a meteorology degree to work at the Weather Channel and these places, and NOAA even. It's so weird. When I was in radio, like I said, I was on radio, had a radio show when I was a senior in high school. I've been on radio on and off my whole life. And so part of the thing was you'd have the feed come up, and it'd be the weather forecast, and you'd read it over the air, like what I was looking at. And it would be, in the short term, it would always be correct. The first 2 days, the day and tomorrow would always be 95% correct. But sometimes the longer term forecast, you couldn't, the weekend, you'd say, oh, this weekend looks like it's going to be a good weekend to go down the shore, and then it would rain. But, that's understandable. Long-term forecast, things change, right? But they can't tell you from hour to hour now, and I find that highly suspect. Like everything else, though. So, this is just like, I don't know, whack-a-doodle. People come up, I find, people on YouTube, they use so many different words because it's so crazy, right? It's just so crazy. My coffee warmer, I'm turning it off because there's not much coffee left. Just a couple sips. But it was pretty good coffee. Finished it off today. The past couple of days, I haven't really finished it off. But anyway, so I don't know if this show, I thought we covered a lot of ground. But, to some people, a lot of this stuff may just seem like fantasy or, weirdness. But I'm telling you, I haven't even scratched the surface. I just do these free flow of consciousness. I have no notes in front of me whatsoever. There's nothing here. Okay? It's just me. The only notes I have down here are ginger spice, Brazil nuts, and Capello's noodles. I was trying to get some healthier foods. But I'll tell you, those Capello's noodles, I'm not buying those. Those were like $30 boxes to get so you could get some like non-grain pasta. It's like I'll take the risk and eat some pasta. Jeez. Couldn't believe the price of some of that stuff. But I'm going to do some shopping today. It's a question of whether or not I haven't walked in a while. So it's only 4:56 a.m. This show will be over shortly. 5. I'll watch the playback, and then after the playback, I'll take a walk down to the grocery store, I think. And I'll buy a few things and get some exercise in. Just because it's going to be supposedly there's going to be a thunderstorm today, and I don't think they usually don't come till later in the day. And with my luck, they usually come when I'm going to lay down to go to bed. Right? So then I have to like get up, put socks and shoes on and go up to the attic and then drain the leaks so that those things don't overflow and make it down to my bedroom or the second floor hallway or front room. What a life. What a life. But I've come to accept it. It's been happening now since the summer. And I really can't, get totally attempt to solve the problem or diminish the problem to a point of where it's more manageable until the weather gets warm. So I'm going to have to put up with this for at least another 2 to 3 months. I need it to be hot, after April, April showers bring May flowers, it has to be one of those where I know it's going to be, hot for like 3 days in a row. Where I could look at the map, like this, wherever it is. One of these type of things where I can see that the weather patterns, this is an older one, but I could see the weather patterns are such that I know, unlike the people on the Weather Channel, that I could look at the clouds and I could see the jet stream, and I know that I'm going to have several days of sunny, of high pressure system and no clouds and sun. So I could open up and dismantle this area and it'll dry out. And then I could add various sealants and maybe, put up a system, this zip system or some kind of thing that I can, put up there waterproof and, deal with it and expand it to a wider area. So if more problems arise, I've got those areas covered. And in case the leak would develop somewhere, chances are that leak would be limited to a specific spot, in which case I could just underneath that put like a 5-gallon, bucket. And I wouldn't have to worry about getting up at the middle of the night. And even if there were 2 or 3 areas that I couldn't, I want to get it down to that point because I can't I'm not putting a $20,000 roof on here. But in order to get to the point where I might have 2 or 3 5-gallon buckets at strategic locations, at least I would know I would be able to sleep through the night because the storms always seem to come at night and it rains the heaviest at night when I'm in bed. And I'm up there 3 or 4 times or more, draining, emptying out things because it rains all out because it's right now, it's just out of control. So I got to get it down to where it's manageable. And once it's manageable, I'll live with it, and I could deal with it in such a way where I could keep it and I could not have to worry about mold or mildew or something like that. There's ways of dealing with stuff like that. So that's my goal. But that's months away. It's March, April. It's 2 months away. I can't see attacking that problem until May. Because we get frost as late as, this is mid-Atlantic states too. You have to understand that. I'm not in the Northeast. I'm like in the mid-Atlantic, more or less. Okay, so, you have to understand, this is what I'm trying to talk to, get this point across. We get frost, since I've been here, we've had snow and frost the first to second week of May. All right, consistently. And yet you turn on like any major station, including like Weather Channel, and they're saying this was the warmest day month on record. And you're going like, okay, I got friends down south, I got friends in the east, I've got people I communicate in the west. I watch these people, on YouTube showing images of, here's what it looks like outside our window right now, right? I'm going to the NOAA site, seeing, whatever. And they're saying, and I'm going, no, you don't understand. It's so far this year, we're into March. These have been the coldest 3 months, it's been frickin' freezing. And we got a lot of snow all over this country. And these people are talking about, we want to like get off of fossil fuels and go to electricity or something. It's like, well, how are you going to make the electricity? What are you going to like crank something? I mean, they have no idea what it would take to heat a building. How much, like I say, the thermodynamics, thermal units, BTUs, like heating and cooling, cooling. I mentioned this yesterday. I'm just about, just winding the show down. They don't build buildings anymore to where buildings are built that they are dependent upon HVAC systems. All right. So what happens is, so you have all these retirees down south, right? And all these like long-term care facilities or, partial, retirement communities, things like that. And they're all in these buildings and they have like double paned windows and different stuff like that. But I mean, they all have HVAC systems. They have to run their AC like, excuse me, all the time. Because there's no, they weren't designed by architects who took into consideration like a flow of, people opening a screen here and a screen there and having a flow of air and, things like that. And in all the major cities, a lot of these buildings, especially the skyscrapers, the windows don't even open. So they're totally dependent upon an HVAC system for circulation and, cooling in the summer and heating in the winter. That's how they built buildings now. People build houses now, developments. It's the same way. Like I say, they don't use storm shutters down the south. They'll put these shutters on the sides, but they're just things nailed as like, for aesthetics, right? It's a feature. It's an architectural feature, not a functional architectural engineering feature. To where you can close those storm shutters and stuff, and keep your windows from shattering or for flying objects, in a situation, a high wind situation, storm situation, from breaking the glass and stuff. No, they don't do that. And most of these houses have HVAC systems, and they're connected to the grid. And this is just more of a strain on electricity. You see? You don't even see people with like oil home. I don't even know if it's legal anymore. Like people used to have oil tanks so they'd fill their own oil. Now I know people do a propane out in the country, their own propane tanks that they get filled up. So that in effect they're off the grid that way as far as that their heating is concerned. And some people in the country also still have fireplaces, not fireplaces, but wood burning stoves and things like that. But I mean, they're few and far between compared to the masses amount. There's 330 million people in this country. And so, when I hear somebody from the Department of Energy or a government official or even the president say, we've got to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels, and so we're going to buy from dictators and terrorists to get us through here to lower the price of gasoline or something. And I'm thinking, are you out of your fucking mind? Do you have any understanding of reality? We need more electric cars. The more electric cars you create, the more you're going to need to produce energy. The greater the demand is to produce electricity. And that is not going to be accomplished with more bird-killing, decaying, overpriced windmills or solar arrays. It's like, come on. What kind of futuristic world are you building where we don't get to look at landscapes anymore? We can't look at oceans. We're going to see, windmills everywhere? Hydroelectric type of things in the way, they want to tap the waves, the ocean waves, so you won't be able to go into the waves, surf the waves anymore because there'll be like these things there that'll like chop your legs off worse than a shark, right? They want to use wave power. I mean, these guys got some crazy ideas, and then you got guys like Bill Gates who are like trying to dim the sun. It's like, dim the sun. Look at the picture on my screen. The Earth's already cooling, man. So we're in like Psychoville. I've said this before. We're in Psychoville. And right now, the people in charge of all the governments, they're all various mayors of their little versions of Psychoville. The sad part about it is, in reality, it's an organized crime syndicate, and all the governments are like, they're like little, franchisees of this new syndicate, organized crime syndicate. That's like the World Economic Forum Davos set. Sounds crazy? Just look around. Open your eyes and really look around. And instead of you goddamn YouTubers bringing up, look at someone-son tweeted, and here's what they had on such and such a TV channel, or here's what such and such said. It's like, why don't you look at the facts, right? Why don't you like deal with it? I mean, I'm rattling off. This goes deeper and deeper and deeper than I haven't even scratched the surface of what's really going on, and how much. Anyway. To be continued. Good morning. It's utter, complete madness. Go to my site, ROCKFLUX.com. Get yourself a hoodie, a shirt, a cap. Get a ROCKFLUX.com sticker, decal, bag. Buy one of my books. Go to Great Solar Stuff. Get yourself some power backup. You don't even need to get the solar panel necessarily. You can plug these things in your house or your car to keep them charged, and the power goes out. At least you got power for a couple of days. All right? And you support the channel. Go on. What are you waiting for? You could do it. You can afford it. I can't, but you can. Or gift me one of them.